Here you go. Snopes. Did Blue's Clues Pride Parade feature a beaver with top scars? True. That's from Snopes. Now, why are they showing your children pride parades with people with top scars? The issue is, I may not be, like, when they come out and they say something like, oh, not that many kids are getting it, you're exaggerating. It's like, I never came out and said every kid was getting it. This is the weird thing. When Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan, and Rogan asked Matt Walsh how many kids are doing this, Matt Walsh, what did he say, millions or something like that? He said some ridiculous number, and then everyone called him out because it's thousands. It's in terms of cross-sex hormones, I think it's around 50,000. In terms of puberty blockers, it's like 17,000. And in terms of mastectomies for adolescent girls, it's in the thousands, like between 1 and 2,000. And I was like, well, I can't speak for anybody else. But I never came out and said, oh, heavens me, there's too many kids getting this. It must be in the millions. I was like, one kid getting this is not good. And you know why? Because in Scandinavia, they piloted this and then said, whoa, this isn't working, and abandoned it. And in the UK, they piloted this and then said, whoa, this is not working, and abandoned it. And not only were the children that they were trying to treat still suicidal or depressed, the surgeries and the medical intervention actually increased or made these things worse or did nothing at all. So all it does is increase risk. My point is, why are we encouraging children to do it? It's if you're going to come out and be like, it's only 50,000 on these hormones, then I'll be like, okay, if you don't think that's too many, what would be too many? If the left says, who cares, not that many kids are getting it, my response is, what is the number by which you would then say, I am allowed to be concerned that children are undergoing treatments that we've already seen in other countries fail? What's the number? Is it not 50? Is it 75? Is it 100? Is it 200? Okay, here's the point. If Blue's Clues keeps pushing this stuff, give it 5-10 years, we will be at 100,000. How about we just call it out right now and say, let's not get to that number?
Well, let's be honest. We're not going near far enough to stop it right now either. I'm glad we're finally waking up and finally calling it out. And what
do you mean, though? We're passing laws. We're banning it across the country.
Passing laws? We have the biggest children's organization in the United States of America, Disney, sexually grooming children with this stuff over and over and over again. And I realize, and I applaud Florida for what they're doing, going after tax exempt status. We're a nation with many children in it. If you have a corporation in your nation that has dedicated part of its mission to attacking the children of your nation, that corporation should immediately be shut down. Immediately, should send in the National Guard. Should send in the Marines, empty it out and fire everybody. But, well, if we're interested in real solutions, yeah, okay, so we're banning it in what, a few states? What, we're at 20 states now? Okay, so that, well, by my math, that leaves,
in a couple of years.
That leaves us 30 states who are still doing it, and we'll slowly, incrementally do this. And what's going to happen is we're eventually going to have a bunch of kind of red states where you can't do most of this stuff, but you can do a little. And then these blue Sodom and Gomorrah freaking hellholes where where Dr. Frankenstein is just operating on these kids every other day. And where did we end up? We ended up still evil. We ended up still bad. It's exactly right. We're not nipping it in the bud in the right way. But we're finally engaging, but we're still taking half measures. All we do is half measure after half measure.
I disagree, because I don't think there's much beyond making it illegal. If we're headed towards a point where, and I've talked about this, we had the story of Jeff Younger, I believe his name was. He was on this show.
Yeah, Jeff.
He has a kid who his wife took to California, which is a sanctuary.
I remember.
And I'm like, look, man, the number one thing we don't want civil war. We don't want divorce. We don't want violence, because then China wins. Because then our foreign adversaries just take over, and the U.S. it'll be conflict nobody wants to experience. But if they are unwilling. If I'll put it this way, the right tends to be, as a collective, whatever you would call the right in the culture war, I would say actually relatively of limited morals. Meaning the Christian conservatives are particularly moralistic and have a set of morals, but then you have a lot of libertarians, you have a lot of traditional liberals, and the morals within this group are disparate. They differ. The one thing they hold is like truth. What is true? What is not true? So you can have an individual like Jimmy Dore who disagrees on economic policy for opinion reasons based on what we don't know to be absolute, but he'll tell you, oh yeah, these things did happen. I agree with you. You're right. That news story did happen. I read that. That's true. And so the issue I see is, with everything the left is doing pertaining to the expansion of abortion to the point of birth and the, what do they call them? Gender affirming sanctuaries, the only end result of all of this, in my opinion, is going to be conflict. Because of what I'll take a look at history. We take a look at the history of the Civil War and the moral issues surrounding slavery. And what was it? There were a lot of people in northern states. And despite the fact that Northerners were extremely racist and they overall did not care about slavery, there were large factions of abolitionists who only cared about slavery and were willing to travel to other states and territories to outright murder people to end slavery. And there's interesting questions about, do we believe those people were morally justified? So let's stop and put it this way. Do people hold John Brown in high esteem? The answer is yes.
They do.
Despite the fact that he was a murderous terrorist. Despite the fact that he and his sons would walk up to slave owners and just murder them. And for me, I'm kind of like, I think that's a bad thing, and we don't want anything like that happening now. Because you have to understand what that means. It means either Antifa will determine that our systems, our institutions, are worthy of being burnt to the ground, which they do, and the violence will escalate. Or then you get conservatives who act like John Brown, which only makes the conflict worse, and then you end up in mass war. The question of who wins, I'm not entirely sure. I will just say, I don't know, with watching all of this, at what point people come back together and this country heals, and I'm not convinced it's possible. Because you look at what happened in 2020 with the election war game, where apparently John Podesta, role-playing this game, said that if Donald Trump were to have won in 2020, the West Coast states should secede from the Union. Like, where does all of this lead to?
The secession and the breakup of the United States talk. James Lindsay was talking to Vivek Ramaswamy on Vivek's YouTube channel a few days ago, and they were saying it's like in war, in combat. If you want to destroy your enemy, you do not surround them. Because if you surround them, they'll fight to the death. If you want to destroy your enemy, you surround them on 3 sides and you give them one escape route. And then when they flee, when they see that route and they take it and they flee, that's when you jump on them and destroy them when they're routing. So
that's
same in the
happening
culture
a lot
war.
in Ukraine right now, too, by the way.
It's the same in the culture war. What's happening is they're giving people an escape route in the guise of national divorce. And that's the mistake. Do not take that path. That's the destruction of everything, is if we think that dissolution is...
States.
Yeah, if we assume the path is the dissolution, then
Maybe.
Now, hold on
that's
a second.
one escape route that we've been given. In
What
the culture
United
war.
States?
These United States.
No. What United States? The one we want to exist, or the one that actually exists? Like, we've been talking about things like Tim keeps bringing up about European nations far ahead of us who have stopped these horrible procedures for children. But let's keep going back. Let's keep going back to COVID. These European nations that I personally, and I know many of us have mocked, look at socialist idiot Europeans, were far ahead of us here. We here in the United States of America, especially on the right, we have a very nostalgic view of the country that we still think exists. Now, there are still gigantic pockets of this country that do exist in that way. But the government in its current form, and I will include our education system, entertainment system, our sports systems, this country is one of the most broken and corrupt countries in the entire planet. And it's not even a question about it.
Yep.
One of the most broken and corrupt countries in the entire planet. What United States are we talking about? Because it's not the United States of Grandpa and World War II on the beaches of Normandy. And it's not the United States of America from the year 2000. It's the United States of America where our pride flags fly from embassies across. We sexually mutilate children in this nation over and over again. We have politician after politician after politician in this country that took part in all that COVID madness, dumping all over everybody, keeping their seats of power after they did so. They all got richer. While we have inflation raging and mom and pops can't buy eggs at the grocery store, the United States GOP and Senate, or GOP and Democrats in the Senate, came together and passed a $1.7 trillion bill that was just a big handout to all of their friends. It didn't even pretend like it did anything for the people.
Then we can say this.
We don't have a United States of America. That's a lie. We don't have a United States. That's a nostalgic lie.
Then that's it.
No, that's not it. But let's acknowledge reality. We still have huge pockets of the country that can be saved. But let's stop talking about we the people. They know we the people. Everyone's seen that poll. I'm sure you guys have talked about it on the show. What was it? 68% of Democrats thought you should be arrested or locked in your home if you didn't take a COVID vaccine. Don't tell me I'm sharing a country with that person. That person's my enemy, and I'm his enemy.
That's it.
Of course.
Ron
That's
Paul,
it.
last
We're,
night,
we're a late stage republic is what we are. We're a late stage republic.
Last
And,
night,
we're,
Ron-
and the next stage is what, empire?
No, I hope not. I believe that it's empire because history probably says that it's empire, and that's just freaking
Someone
terrible.
will cross the Rubicon.
Yeah, that's friggin' horrible. But yeah, I believe the era, and this really sucks because I love teeny tiny government. I believe the era of limited government is laughably past us. That we will never get back to that again because the only people who crave limited government are people who've experienced real tyranny, like the founders have. But since we haven't really experienced the teeth of that yet, now it's just big government right and big government yet left. So it's either empire, or whether it's some official divorce or secession or whatever kind of crazy word you want to put on it, we are living in two Americas, and you better get to the part where they don't want to cut your son's penis off, and you better get there now because the other part ain't backing off. They're not apologizing. They're not moderating. They're not backing away. In fact, they're taking our people and they're throwing them in prison.
Which is why don't buy Anheuser-Busch.
No
Bud Light.
Exactly right.
Ron Paul
Bud
last
Light,
night,
no more.
he said there was a coup in the United States in 1963 when the government killed Kennedy. And it just shook me. I think he's right. And I don't know what to do about it.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation just got busted infiltrating the Catholic Church. I brought up this point recently, and I want people to really take in what this means. When the United States government, when they mission focus on one enemy, they destroy that enemy. They've done it in the past with the Soviet Union, Cold War, focus, everything, CIA, FBI, government policy, your economic policy, your military, everything, focus, destroy the Soviet Union, took them down. Then we focused on Islamic Jihad. Don't get started, Luke. We got focused on Islamic Jihad.
The CIA.
And how many of those people did we kill across the planet? And I'm not bad-mouthing killing terrorists. How many did we kill across the planet?
Millions.
And people need to understand now that same mission focus across NSA, CIA, FBI, United States government, State Department, they are mission focused on the American right within our borders. We will have people say
and
things
you know
like
what?
they're destroying our military. No, they're purging the dissident right out of the military
And the
because
police.
they're rebuilding, and the police, because they're building one, and they're building one for a different purpose. I don't believe in this idea that we're just one election away from holding hands, because no, we're not.
Well, I certainly don't think so either. And I've been talking about this. It's been a couple of years, actually. There was a video where a guy is attacked by Antifa and is fleeing, and the police show up, apologize to Antifa, and arrest him.
Yep. And I saw the same thing in Dallas, Texas. Red state of Dallas, Texas. Some child drag show, and of course Antifa shows up to beat up anyone who protests it. And the Dallas Police Department, not the Antifa guys in masks with weapons, they mobbed the one dude who was trying to walk down the sidewalk by himself, and he's yelling at him. He said, "Why are you harassing me? There's the angry, violent mob right there."
We saw this in Canada. It was
trucker protest.
Press for Truth. Press for Truth.
Yes, Press for Truth. Dan Dix recorded the videotape.
He was filming, and he got surrounded by far left extremists. So the police grabbed him and said, "If you don't leave, we'll arrest you." And he said, "What? They attacked me. We don't care. Get out, or we'll arrest you." And so this is the thing. I got to tell you, part of it feels really good. I imagine Luke is probably, every so often smiling a little bit, that conservatives who supported all of the expansion of police powers and of DHS and things like that, and the Patriot Act, are now the ones who are being targeted by it, because it's probably a bit of schadenfreude. The only problem is we're all caught in the same maelstrom.
Yeah, definitely not smiling, since, again, this is affecting everyone. And people have to understand this is also going to affect the left as well. The revolution eats its own. And
First.
Exactly. And when we look at historically what happens during these big political shifts, especially in China, especially during the Cultural Revolution, especially in the Soviet Union, you see a lot of the top members. You see a lot of the people who helped this new party get into power be purged right away, sacrificed, murdered, and genocided in so many different ways. And this is why this is such a dangerous turning point in America. And after 9/11, I was warning people, hey, the Patriot Act, destroying the Constitution, spying on American citizens, torturing, renditioning people, drone bombing and killing people that are American citizens, maybe is not a good idea. And I think this is why the right doesn't have as much leverage, doesn't have as much respect, and why we have such a big cultural pushback, because during the Bush years, they have essentially destroyed this country, destroyed the U.S. Constitution, indebted this country, printed money out of thin air, and has led us to this horrible situation where now the people on the left are like, well, if they get in power, they're going to create more war. They're going to destroy our Constitution. Constitution, so we got to do it first. And now the Democrats are doing it. And now the Republicans are where the Democrats used to be, and the seats are changing. But in reality, we're just being propelled left and right towards this totalitarian statist hellhole. And more people are saying we just got to vote for the lesser of two evils. And this is what led us here. And we've been warning about it. We've been warning about it for such a long time.
Well,
and everyone said, you're crazy, you're kooky, you're a conspiracy theorist. Nope. Here we are today. And and I don't know how we're going to go back.
Shout out to Dr. Ron Paul. We had him on last night. It was an honor and a privilege. And Luke shared with me a meme from the show. So Luke's sitting over here and he asks of Dr. Paul, are they malicious or are they ignorant? I said, are they stupid or are they evil? And what did Dr. Paul say?
Ron Paul just smiles like, yes. And I was like, which one? He was like, no, yes. And,
both.
Yeah, great response. And then he talked about how they are ignorant and they are absolutely evil in many instances. And this is what happens when you have this two kind of duopoly system that has hijacked our government. And again, when it comes to, even the administration before this, the national debt, the lockdowns, the emergencies, that doesn't help anyone as well. Printing money out of thin air, giving everyone $2,000 checks, which amounted to nothing, by the way, compared to all the corporate banking bailouts, which, as you said, were huge sums of money that they just gave their friends.
Republicans and Democrats.
Exactly.
Republicans and Democrats. Republicans were all for lockdowns. Republicans were all for passing these $1 trillion bills, just like the Democrats
They were attacking Sweden.
Of course they were.
They were attacking Sweden and their own fellow Republican politicians that were like, maybe 15 days to slow the spread is a really bad idea when we allow Walmart to be open, but we shut down the small mom and pop stores. Maybe that's a bad idea. And then the president of the United States at the time attacked that politician very viciously. And let's call it out here. Let's be honest with ourselves, because I think this is a major issue of concern and major issues that are holding the right back from actually achieving something good. And again, this is why I don't have a lot of faith in the right. I have a lot of faith in the American people that don't vote, that don't support the system, that are sick and tired of this bullcrap and are taking matters into their own hands by being personally responsible.
I think we're on a track to victory, to be completely honest. I think we win at the end of all of this. I think the future will be 50 to 100 years. The country will be much more patriotic. It will be much more like, as you put it, World War II, Greatest Generation, go America. And I'll give you a few reasons why. If we follow the Strauss-Howe generational theory, we are in the fourth turning, which means just by the nature of how generations operate, we are in the worst of it. And the worst of it will create strong men who will create good times, who will in turn then later on create weak men. But that means the next phase is the first. We're in the fourth turning. A period of tumult will happen. And then there will be a period where we start picking up and climbing up. So I think we're seeing the worst of it now. Over the next couple of years, it's predicted to get very bad. Maybe it's World War III, maybe it's Civil War, maybe it's hot war, maybe it's not. And then we'll have a period where the strong men start to rebuild, as we have seen throughout history in this country and many others. The other issue that I think is worth pointing out is that conservatives have kids. They may not have enough kids, but all that matters is they have twice as many as liberals. Liberals are more likely to abort their kids, more likely to sterilize themselves and their kids. And conservatives right now have actually been pushing the talking point of having as many kids as possible, which means we may actually see a boost due to the culture among what I would just refer to as the freedom faction, because it's not just conservatives, it's also disaffected liberals and libertarians. People are saying, have more kids, have at least 2, have 3, because liberals are having 1 on average. And if that, give that 20 years, and you know what that means? If every conservative family has 4 children right now, in 20 years, you will have 4 times the youth voter base. Now, of course, the left tries to indoctrinate your kids, but what else are we seeing in the cultural zeitgeist among the right is homeschool your kids, bring your kids into homeschooling pods and get away from these schools. The other big factor that I think shows we're on a path to victory is the fleeing of these urban centers to places like Florida and Texas. People who actually pay attention are moving away from these nightmarish hellholes. And the best part, I suppose the worst part for people who live in the cities, we just saw in Portland, Coava, a coffee shop, announce finally they were shutting their doors down because the violence and extremism had grown too much for them to handle and they couldn't take care of their employees. Industry is collapsing, and they will soon have no access to resources. The one benefit the United States had over, say, the Soviet Union is that when the revolution happened, they top down just started killing people and implemented their weirdo communist garbage and destroyed everything. But we have the Second Amendment, and we're a very, very large country with smaller subcultures within this country, which means when California, LA, and SF, for instance, get woke, they go broke. it will be extremely difficult for the law enforcement of California to go to Texas to force their way of life. What does that mean? As you mentioned earlier, Jesse, there are pockets of this country that are still going strong and can be saved. It doesn't matter. Those pockets aren't going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to go in there and take them down. In fact, Texas is turning more red. Florida became a reliable red state, which means when California collapses under the weight of its Democrat policy garbage, we're now seeing, I covered this story. I did a segment on this earlier, but I'm putting it up on Friday. Homeless camps popping up in Beverly Hills. You know what that means? It means all of these Hollywood celebrities who invested their money in property are not going to have a penny to give grandma because they're going to be underwater. Hey, look, I got a $5 million movie contract, so I bought a $10 million house. Now I got an $8 million loan on that house, but it's only worth $5 million. I can't sell it. What can I do with it? Nobody wants to come here. There's homeless people and crime everywhere. Guess what? In places like Texas and Florida, things are getting better. In West Virginia, things are getting better. But in the big cities, things are getting worse. As long as all of this continues, the insulated and somewhat isolated conservative pockets that are thriving will thrive. The institutions of the left will eat themselves and destroy themselves. The beer companies will collapse for trying to sell beer to children that don't want to drink it, or I should say to young college kids, destroying their market. There's a reason why we say get woke, go broke. It's a tendency, not a law. Over a long enough period of time, we have seen more than enough examples of companies embracing wokeness and then losing money because of it. Now, of course, they have institutional capture. They've got weapons in the federal government, but I don't think in the long run that matters because the weight is pressing on them, not us. We are the people who are living outside of the cities, who are leaving these cities and getting away from it and then thriving. Places like Florida, where Ron DeSantis already locked down, but he reopened up. And then people flooded to Florida, where there's beautiful beaches, there's great weather, and people are having a party. Then there's Texas. Texas is turning redder as well because people are coming here because they want freedom, which means all of the attempts of the left to take over has created an inverse pressure system, which is sending people out of their states, which costs them power, which reduces their revenue, reduces their income, reduces their influence, and then they abort and sterilize their kids. So certainly we want to stop all these bad things, but I think the long run is if we sat back and just said, stay the course and keep doing everything you're doing, I think in 100 years, it's over. We completely won. But if we persist in the culture war and make sure we're homeschooling our kids, make sure we aren't buying Anheuser-Busch products, 20 to 30 years. 20 to 30 years of conservatives having 4 kids each, and you've got a voting bloc that has been raised on winning a culture war. And that's all that matters. 4 times the new voters entering the system, and it's not even 20, it's 18 years. In 18 years, from this day, conservatives can have 4 more votes per family. That's 1 for you, 1 for your significant other, and 4 kids. Granted, you're not going to have 4 kids all at once. So maybe within the span of 23 years, you might have 4 kids who are of voting age, but liberals aren't going to have any of that.
I would say maybe, and that's a very optimistic look and perspective to have there, which again is important to kind of explore here. But when we have open immigration, when we have populations being replaced in California, in New York, with another voting base that particularly votes left, with them also making very significant moves against the Second Amendment, with them crashing the petrodollar, with a native population crash of the Western world, I think we're dealing with something very severe that could also happen in the exact inverse as you described here, as we're dealing with an anti-human agenda that encourages the destruction of the family unit, stops reproduction, and pushes a larger depopulation agenda that, of course, is a total totalitarian control grid. So on those aspects, it could swing either way, but that open immigration problem is something also that I think we should be looking at.
I think the southern border is a crisis. I think it is an issue, and I think there's a reason why Democrats don't want to shut the border down, to actually control it. Given 10 years, California brings in more and more people, and a lot of people on the right say it's because they're voting illegally. They're not. They don't need to vote. The population of illegal immigrants gives them more electoral votes, period. And electoral votes are the real votes that matter. California knows this. New York knows this. Joe Biden knows this. That's why they bring in people, bring them to these states. It changes the electoral makeup, not by having them vote, by increasing the amount of districts in the state. So I think in 2010, California had 1 extra congressional vote based on non-citizens. So they're not voting. but they're getting a vote.
I don't think
What do you
voting
think, Jesse?
matters anymore.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.